Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy. That is my co-host, Rob Dunham.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. So we have another excellent podcast in store for you. We will break down all the box office machinations. We will tell you what debuted in the box office this past weekend. And we'll do a kind of a fun discussion where we'll create our own movie playlist.
All
And
right.
of
Our
course,
discussions are always fun. That's why people listen to them.
that's right. For real. Yeah. And that's why each one of you are going to tell all of your friends, literally all of your friends, about the
Yeah.
podcast
This
as
one,
well.
if each of you told two of your friends about us, and then two of your friends told two of their friends,
This is not a pyramid scheme podcast,
this is
however.
also not a religion podcast.
Oh boy, here we go.
That might have been a subtle nod to the movie Heretic, which I actually did last night. So
Fair enough. All right. Well, we are definitely getting to that one as well. So let's get started with the box office. So we are recording this a little later than usual. We're recording this on a Monday night. So when I talk about last weekend's box office, I mean November 1st through 3rd is what we'll talk about. So from that weekend in the box office, number one for the second week in a row was Venom: The Last Dance. Did $25.9 million. It had a 2 week total of $89.85 million. Interestingly enough, it only dropped 49%. So that is on the more positive end. That's a pretty good drop off rate from week 1 to week 2. So it did not lose a lot of steam and momentum from week 1 to week 2, which is really interesting. The Wild Robot bumped back up into second place after being third the previous weekend. It did 7.4 million. It actually gained 9.4%, which is really interesting. It actually did better this past weekend than it did the previous weekend. And that is
yes, and that's with dropping over 100 theaters, right?
190. It dropped
Yeah,
190 theaters. Yeah,
yeah, it's pretty impressive.
that is pretty impressive. So it has done $121 million in its 6 week run, and it has stayed in the top five for the entire 6 week run.
Mm,
It's a pretty impressive showing for the Wild Robot. It
yeah,
had good reviews coming in, and it's done very well at the box office.
yeah. I ended up seeing that movie again. I
Mhm.
think I talked about it the first time I saw it, and I think I appreciated it more the second time because sometimes when you go into a movie, it's not exactly what you're expecting it to be,
Mhm.
and that can influence your opinion of it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think going into it not having the expectation I did the first time, I ended up liking the movie more
Mm.
the second time.
Nice. Yeah. Smile 2 came in third at 6.7. In its 3 weeks, it's done $52 million. Conclave finished fourth after being number four the previous week, $5 million. And it has made almost $15 million. And the new entrant to the box office, the lone new entrant, was Here. Did $4.8 million in week 1. That was the Tom Hanks movie. And so overall, the box office was down 29% from the previous weekend. So definitely a big hit to the overall box office numbers. But in the midst of that, several movies did quite well.
Yeah, and I think you're probably going to see a Smile 3 at some point based on how Smile 2 has done. Although it's trending to not be as successful as the first one, I think it's still succeeding enough that it will produce at least a third one.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's definitely the case. For sure. I mean, the first one had like this weird viral sensation. And so it was kind of unrealistic to expect the second one to kind of do the same. Especially they didn't promote it nearly as much or in nearly the same way as they did the first Smile.
Mhm.
So yeah. Yeah, I'm a little surprised Here didn't do a little bit better given the star power behind it. but the subject matter was definitely, I think, trending towards that level of movie. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm surprised and I'm not surprised at the same time. I might have pushed it up a little bit more towards 8 or 9 million in my head, would have been what
Mhm.
I thought. Any other thoughts on the box office numbers?
Nothing particular comes to mind.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised that Venom, because it didn't get great reviews, that Venom didn't have a higher drop off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's doing something right. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. So now we'll switch to what was in the box office this past weekend. What came out? Four movies of note came out this weekend. Elevation, rated R, an hour and 30 minutes long. And this is a single father and two women venture from the safety of their homes to face monstrous creatures to save the life of a young boy. This is kind of a future apocalyptic sci-fi type deal. Stars Morena Baccarin and Anthony Mackie. Next up, the official wider release of the best Christmas pageant ever, PG, rated or an hour and 39 minutes. And nobody is ready for the mayhem and surprises that ensue when six of the worst youngsters disrupt the town's yearly Christmas performance. So this is kind of a comedy with starring Judy Greer. And then you have Heretic, rated R, an hour and 50 minutes. And it's two young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man, starring Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. And we wrap up the new ones with Weekend in Taipei, rated R, an hour and 40 minutes. A former DEA agent and a former undercover operative revisit their romance during a fateful weekend in Taipei, unaware of the dangerous consequences of their past. Luke Evans is the primary star here. I thought it was interesting. Luc Besson is actually one of the writers of this film. Fifth Element comes to mind when you think of Luc Besson. He's been in a number of he's involved either in directing or writing a number of interesting kind of cult classic movies. He's involved in the writing of this one. So obviously you've already stated that you saw Heretic.
Mm-hmm.
So I would guess that would be the one you'd want to see most. But what do you make of the other entrance to the box office?
Yeah, I'm interested in Weekend in Taipei too.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the songwriting credit is interesting to me. The casting is interesting to me. The other ones I'm not really that interested in.
Yeah,
So
you kind of need a good shoot 'em up action movie every once in a while.
yeah,
Just it's like a palate cleanser. You just kind of need to get that in your system a little bit. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to see if the best Christmas pageant ever is actually interesting or funny. Um, Feels like there has been a dearth of quality Christmas movies in recent years. I don't know if that's because like Hallmark literally does like 500 Christmas movies and everyone else is like there's no space for any other Christmas movies. I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, there hasn't been a great one, though we will have one coming up that we'll probably talk about on the podcast this next week that is vying for some mainstream Christmas movie love. So we'll
I
see.
think I know the one you're talking about. Like,
Yeah, it might have to do with the color red. I don't know. You may have seen an ad or two for it. I don't know.
or 12,000. I don't know.
Yeah,
You've gone
yeah,
to the theater. You've probably seen it before every movie you've watched.
yeah. um, yeah, I think I'm curious. I there's enough movies out that I would want to see ahead of it, but Elevation could be interesting if it's done well. I just don't know if there's going to be enough there, and it's deep enough in the roster that I'm not sure I would get around to seeing in theaters, but I would be open to seeing it like when it came out on streaming. Okay. That is what is in the box office. In other news, a new trailer dropped, and it's for a series that we have covered extensively on this podcast, and that is Mission Impossible. Yes, Mission Impossible 8 has a trailer and has an official title now. And that one dropped in the past few days. It is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And so that trailer is on YouTube and everywhere that you can see it. It's the first look at the new Mission Impossible movie. It is slated for a May 2025 release. And I know, Rob, we both got a chance to check it out. What did you make of the trailer?
I'm very excited about watching Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part Two, and I really don't understand the need to change the name because obviously Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part Two, considering everything in the trailer is a continuation of what happened in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One.
It's interesting because there's probably a good reason for it. And they probably did change a lot of what they were planning on doing. The problem is, like, none of the rest of us know that.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is they really are playing off, at least from this trailer, you're getting a real sense that they are portraying this as the final movie.
Mm-hmm.
At least probably in the Tom Cruise iteration of Mission Impossible. They really are hamming that up. So I think it's possible that maybe that's the main reason for the title change is, kind of emphasizing the idea that this is gone. But you see several things that lead to that. One, there is kind of that, you know, Kittredge voice overlay throughout the trailer that kind of thinks all of your choices come down to this. There's multiple references to, like, the scope of Ethan Hunt's life, the scope of his career, the scope of his choices,
Yeah, and there
all
were
those type of things.
several flashback shots too from previous movies
Yeah.
throughout
You
the
have the,
trailer.
you have the infamous, like, hanging off the floor moment from one. What looked like possibly the rabbit's foot, maybe from Mission
Mhm.
Impossible 3, might have made an appearance in there too. Uh, yeah. So they also, there's that quote near the end where Tom Cruise is saying, "I need you to just trust me one last time."
Mhm.
So there's several references throughout there. So I wonder if they really are setting this up for, like, the final Mission Impossible for this particular cast and crew.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of focus on that key in the submarine
Mm-hmm.
that was introduced in the first one. That it kind of all built up to, okay, we have this, now we got to figure out how to get the thing unlocked.
Yeah.
So now we have part two of getting the thing unlocked, almost like it's the continuation of part one. How strange.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot of underwater scenes, like submarine scenes, water scenes, things like that. I thought one of the most interesting and maybe the coolest visually that they showed in the trailer was kind of like Ethan Hunt in his underwear, well under what looks like icy water, kind of floating to the bottom. And some seemingly mysterious woman comes in to either kiss him or give him mouth to mouth or something along those lines. That was a very James Bond esque shot right there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting. It was very visually engaging. And uh, yeah, it just kind of leaves you wondering what the heck's going on there.
Yeah, it's kind of it makes me play that scene is making me play the trailer game dream sequence or actual scene.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I might be leaning towards dream sequence on that particular scene there.
Yeah. Of course, you get some clues to some of the classic Mission Impossible stunts. You have a couple of what, like, biplanes. Are they biplanes? I can't remember from the trailers.
Yeah, yeah.
They're old school biplanes weaving in and out of mountainous terrain. And of course, is Ethan Hunt in the plane? No, he is not in the plane.
He's
He is,
hanging
of
off of
course,
it.
hanging off the wing
Yeah.
because why not?
And obviously, the trailer featured lots of Tom Cruise running in the way only Tom Cruise can run.
Oh yeah, like full out dead sprint, like he's in the Olympics. Oh wait, he was in the Olympics. Yes, if you missed that, he was absolutely in the Olympic closing ceremonies.
Nice.
um, so yeah, it's action packed. There were a lot of quick cuts. They threw you a lot of like real quick shot of a scene, real quick shot of a scene, real quick shot of a scene. And I think, unlike some of the ones for the previous movie, they're not featuring the whole thing around like one giant stunt. So they're leaving you a bit in the dark as to what some of the more bolder elements are. But as it has a lot of intrigue to it. So I was pleased. I was excited about the movie when I saw it.
Yeah, it looks definitely like a fitting conclusion to Mission Impossible, if that's what it really is.
Yeah. All right. So I'll link to the trailer in the show notes if you want to check that out. And now we'll move on to our discussion. For this week's discussion, I was thinking about this. It used to be playlists have always kind of been a big thing. You used to have to mix tape, and then you would burn mixed CDs, and now you have like your Spotify playlists that you create and you can share with other people. Were you a big like mixtape, playlist guy, or were you
I mean, I'm a
just
big music guy, period. So yes.
yeah? Because some people aren't. Like my brother is a huge music guy, but he's not a playlist guy. Like he's a put in an album, listen to the whole album guy. But I've always been a good playlist person.
Yeah, I mean, currently I still listen to a new album every week, and my friend and I pick a song each from the album. We listen to the same album, and at the end of the year, we have a list of like, depending on how many of the times we pick the same song, which happens on a fairly regular basis, we have anywhere from like a 60 to 110 song playlist at the end of the year, which is kind of fun.
Yeah,
Just
that's cool.
feel like a journey through the year, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, of course, like now Spotify's become famous for their like Spotify Wrapped, where you kind of get
Mhm.
like your most listened to songs, the artists you'll most listen to. Like you get your own curated playlist of your favorites from the year. Mine is always super screwed up because I have like my regular listening, and then I have like my work listening, which is all like movie soundtracks and
Mhm.
instrumental stuff. So it's a weird playlist in the end. But along that same line, I thought, why can't we do that for movies? A lot of playlists are based around some particular theme, like uh, a playlist that you create for a girl to show her your love or your affection, or the sad breakup music that you would put in after end of a relationship, or the playlist that you're going running or before a sports game where you just want to get pumped up. So I thought we could do that with movies too. So we each one of us decide to pick a theme that we would orient and then create a 3 to 5 movie playlist around that particular theme. So I thought we'd have some fun with that. So Rob, talk to me. What was the theme you chose for your movie playlist?
Okay, so I've got two.
Okay.
Uh, the first one has four movies in it. Uh, there's a reason it has four movies on it, and it's called Heart of the Order.
Mm,
Okay, and in doing some research for the podcast, because that's what we like to do. We like to be informed so that we can inform you.
sure.
I found it very interesting that each one of these four movies, I'm going to read some of the movies that the directors of these movies have also directed, just to
Mm,
give you an idea of what kind of broad range of movie making is coming into this playlist. Uh, the person who directed the Evil Dead, Quick and the Dead, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, Good Morning Vietnam, Rain Man, The Sum of All Fears, Capote. All of these movies were directed by one of the people, not one person, but one of the people in this list. And it's called the Heart of the Order because if you are a fan of baseball, you will know that the most important part of your lineup is hitters 3 through 6. We call it the Heart
mm,
of the Order.
yeah.
Um, so for this playlist, I have put together the four most, in my opinion, essential baseball movies for someone
Nice.
to see, whether they love baseball or they know nothing about baseball. Some of it has to do with emotion, some of it has to do with understanding of the game, some of it just has to do with great movie making. Um, I have watched I'm not gonna say I've watched every baseball movie, but I've watched probably almost every modern baseball movie because I love baseball.
Hmm.
Uh, and these are the movies that stand out to me as movies that you have to watch. Um, so I'm not going to give them a particular order. We're not going to say who's hitting cleanup here or anything like that. But I just have four movies here. The first one is For Love of the Game,
Mm.
which is directed by Sam Raimi. This is the guy who directed Evil Dead, Quick and the Dead, Doctor Strange, and the Multiverse of Madness.
Also,
Starring,
Spider-Man.
yes, and also lots of Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
Starring Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner is also going to show up later in this list, as you are unsurprised if you know anything about baseball
If you
movies.
don't have multiple Kevin Costner movies on it, it's just not a
Yes.
baseball list.
Billy Chappell is a washed-up 40-year-old Detroit Tigers pitcher who is in the midst of his best performance as a professional. And what's really cool about this movie is it shows it happening, but then it also flashes back to his life as it goes through and gives you a really good idea of how he got to the place he's at and what this achievement would actually mean to him. Another thing I really like about this movie is that I think the baseball scenes are shot really well, especially close up scenes in sports movies can be really hard to do
Hmm.
well because you have to have detail, has to feel real, has to feel authentic, and I feel like For Love of the Game does a great job of that in particular. So that's one of them. The next one I have is The Natural
Mm.
from 1984, starring Robert Redford, directed by Barry Levinson. Robert Redford plays Roy Hobbs, who is another washed up former baseball player. He's washed up because he was shot as a young man and has to find a way to come back and ends up making a grand return to the sport that he loves. This movie is cool because it features some connections with real historical baseball. At one point in the movie, he strikes out Babe Ruth
Mm.
when he's a younger kid. Uh, but it also does a really good job of even though it's a fictional team that he ends up on, the New York Knights. They give you a good reason to want to support that team and hope for their success, especially for Roy Hobbs' success. Each one of these movies, I'm pretty sure, have artifacts in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and that is one of the reasons why I think they're important. I believe there is a whole display in the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, for baseball and film. I think there's like a whole sub wing for that, and all of these movies are featured. There's certainly other ones that are there as well, but so The Natural, the third one I have, Kevin Costner Returns, Field of Dreams,
Hmm.
directed by Phil Eldon Robinson, also starring James Earl Jones. If you build it, they will come, Ray. They will most certainly come.
Hmm.
Um, man, that monologue by James Earl Jones is probably the best monologue in a sports movie ever, and arguably one of the best monologues in any movie ever.
Hmm.
And the movie is great because it is a baseball movie, but it's really about a dad and his son.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you like baseball or know anything about baseball, you should love this movie. Like this should be a movie. This should be a required movie for anyone to watch.
It transcends genre. It really does.
And then the fourth one I have, definitely more on the strict number side of baseball or analytics side of baseball. You know exactly what movie I'm going to say. Moneyball,
Hmm.
starring Brad Pitt as Billy Bean, 2011,
Yep.
directed by Bennett Miller. Um, Tracking the Oakland A's rise to success as they seek to uncover these hidden gems throughout professional baseball. And I don't think I'm ever going to get over Chris Pratt playing Scott Hatteberg because just knowing like these are players that I grew up watching, so I know what they look like and how they act. And I'm like, it's really hard sometimes to believe any of these people are these people. David Justice is another one that comes to mind for me in this movie.
Yeah. David Justice was my favorite player as a kid. And so
Yeah,
I get that.
I mean David Justice with the black bat and the holding it in one hand when he check swings. You know,
Hmm.
that's classic growing up baseball for us.
Yeah.
Um, so Moneyball, Field of Dreams, The Natural, and For Love of the Game. I give you the heart of the order,
Hmm.
and you should watch these movies so you better understand baseball and better understand life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely great. And especially that would be especially true if you're not American and you didn't grow up with baseball as your tradition. These movies kind of encompass like the place that baseball has in the American psyche and as part of the American culture, considered our pastime. It really is worth your time
Yeah, I
if
would say
you
all of
didn't
these
grow up
movies
with that.
are more on the serious side
Yeah,
of baseball. Now there's certainly humor in all of them, but they're the reason why I picked them for this list is unlike The Sandlot or um, A League of Their Own or Hardball or any number of other movies you want to throw out there for baseball. These ones, in my opinion, to a film are all excellent movies.
yeah,
And when you combine an excellent movie with excellent source material, that's something that people should invest their time in. And
sure.
so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's where I'm going with that.
I like it.
Do you want me to do my other one now, or do you want to do
I'll
something?
I'll go mine and then you can
Okay.
conclude with your second one. So I for my playlist, I envisioned a weekend at home by yourself. Maybe you're snowed in, maybe you're a bit under the weather and you're by yourself. Maybe your family's away for some reason or your roommates are gone for the weekend and you were just going to chill out and you were going to watch movies by yourself all weekend. And so, what movies should you watch? And so, I had kind of a few different things. Like, one of the things you definitely should watch for your weekend at home alone is you got to watch a nostalgic classic. You got to watch a movie that just resonates with you and kind of the soul of your being. Maybe something from when you were a kid. Uh, there's a lot of different choices, but I went with the Mighty Ducks. Something that's fun, that's nostalgic. They're like, man, I haven't watched this movie in forever. And so for me, the nostalgic classic is going to be the Mighty Ducks. You want to watch something you grew up watching, brings back some memories from when you were a kid. Uh, Definitely the Mighty Ducks is up there. I could have gone Star Wars here, but I went with the Mighty Ducks. The second one, when you're home alone watching movies by yourself, you got to watch a movie that you like that nobody else likes. The movie you maybe you try to get people into and they couldn't, or maybe you just know they don't like it and you're kind of, you know, you just got to watch that movie that nobody else likes that you like. So for this one, I'm going with Mission Impossible 2. I like it. I would never claim that it's one of the best Mission Impossible movies. I would never claim that, but I like the movie. I enjoy it. It's different from all the other ones, and that's okay. And you can talk about all the different Sam Woo or not Sam Woo, John Woo of it all, and you can talk about birds and all that type of stuff. But I just like it, and so you got to watch the movie that you have to watch by yourself because nobody else likes it.
Yeah, I think like GoldenEye might be on that list for me,
Mm.
or some of the other Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies are just ridiculous.
The Die Another Day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
Despite the fact that, especially towards the end, that's an absolutely dreadful movie, but I still kind of like it. It's kind of fun.
Harrison Ford's choice for this would be Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Although, if you really do like that movie, there is some serious questions. I almost went with Battlefield Earth here,
Oh man,
but I couldn't quite do that. So, yeah, you got to watch that movie that you are the only one who likes it. The next thing that's essential for your playlist or your weekend at home is the inspirational action drama. The inspirational action drama, the one that just like, gets you going. Uh, there was a lot of good choices here, but I went Braveheart. You got to watch that movie. The inspiring nature of William Wallace that makes you want to run out and conquer something, or step up and be a man, or any of those type of things. Of course, you're sitting at home watching movies by yourself, so you're probably not acting out on that, but it does get your juices flowing. It does get you up and going. So you need that action drama inspirational movie to kind of round out your weekend.
Yeah, it's a little less action for me, but I would think of a movie like The Gray with Liam Neeson
Mm,
in this for me, because that's not a movie that I know a lot of people are going to sit down and like enjoy.
yeah, yeah,
But I love that movie. So
yeah. I could have gone Gladiator here, but we've talked a lot about Gladiator, and we'll probably be talking a little bit more about Gladiator soon. So I did not go with Gladiator for this one. The next thing, I just got to watch a guy comedy. One that you can never watch around your wife or your girlfriend or any of that, mostly because they will roll their eyes and think you're stupid. So I got to go dodgeball here. You know, just one of the ones that the female persuasion does not necessarily always gravitate towards. Most Will Ferrell movies will fall into this category,
mhm.
even some Ben Stiller or some
Yeah,
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn for sure.
Yeah,
I'd be thinking about like Wedding Crashers here with
yeah,
Vaughn and Owen Wilson. So
yeah. And lastly, for your weekend at home alone watching movies, you got to watch a movie that you don't really want anyone to know that you secretly really like. You know, the one that you have to kind of watch by yourself because you don't want other people to know you really like it.
yeah,
There's a couple of choices for me, but I'm going to go with La La Land here. Because I am not a musical fan and I regularly deride musicals and about how much I hate them. And I will still claim that this is not a traditional musical. But I really do like this movie and I really do feel drawn to watch it sometimes. And I kind of almost feel bad about it.
see, I like this movie and I'm not ashamed of it whatsoever. I tell everybody to watch La La Land. So
Well, see, you have a different vibe and you
yeah,
love musicals and
yeah,
everyone knows that you love
mhm.
musicals. So there's not the same level of, you know, thing there.
Yeah. I might have to throw like The Notebook in here for me or something like that.
Yeah.
Something that I would never admit in public. Although unfortunately, this podcast is in public, so you might have to do some redacting here. I don't know.
Yeah. I almost went with You Got Mail on here, but I've talked about that enough positively that people probably know I already like that movie. So, yeah. All right.
Nice.
That's mine. What's your second playlist?
Uh, just a very short 3 movie playlist. It's not going to take you super long to get through because none of the movies are long. There's a reason for that. Um, and I called it the parody party.
Mm.
Like you wanted to sit down and laugh at things that are dumb. This probably falls into the category of your movies you should watch maybe without your wife around because she'll probably think you're stupid. Um, but the three movies here: Basketball, Mystery Men, and Idiocracy.
Mm.
Basketball, a parody of sports culture in general, which actually has some pretty cutting, interesting insights into modern sports culture, which are really actually well done. Which is unsurprising considering Mike Judge's involvement, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, South Park.
Yeah.
Um,
They're amazingly good at cultural critics. They're
yes,
really, really good at that.
Mystery Men is a parody of the superhero genre, which is what's really interesting about Mystery Men is it was a superhero movie parodying superhero movies before superhero movies became popular.
Yeah.
Which if this movie would have come out like now, I think it might have gotten a lot better response and reaction because
It's
people would have been like, "Oh yeah, that's what they're making fun of."
it's a very like 90s, early 2000s ish movie. And it feels like that's the genre that did that best. I mean, most of these movies come out in that time frame. But yeah, like a spoof movie about superheroes before the MCU is kind of hard to
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. Ben Stiller, William H Macy, Wes Studi, Hank Azaria, Greg Kinnear. Like the cast of this movie is ridiculous. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, and then Idiocracy, which is just a parody of politics and culture and general. Um, really, what's depressing about Idiocracy is it's kind of becoming a documentary, which no one wants to see happen.
It's like it takes the idea of a degenerating culture and it takes it to its extreme. I forget what the term for that is. There's a specific term where you make an absurd claim in order to draw out a specific point, and that's Idiocracy to a T.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how accurate some of it can be.
Yeah. So the thing that I found very interesting about these movies when researching, um, all these movies massively underperformed their budgets, which is not super surprising, but the amount to which they massively underperformed their budgets was very fascinating to me because I think each one of these movies has found an audience.
Yeah.
Like I know people who like each of these movies. And Basketball, when it came out, had a $25 million budget and only made $7 million in the box office. Uh, Idiocracy, when it came out, actually never even had a wide release because they were too worried about how the sponsors who were made fun of in this movie would react to being made fun of. Although I kind of like, you know, welcome to Costco. I love you.
Or Gatorade.
Yeah, Rondo. And then Mystery Men is the biggest of all. Mystery Men had a $68 million budget in 1999, and it only made $33 million. And that movie out of the three might be the most popular, which is really interesting to me that these movies, and you see this in other movies too, that they don't find the audience in the theater, but then over time they find the massive audience outside of the theater.
We should probably do a podcast just on movies like that.
Yeah, cult
Found their
films.
audience after.
Yeah.
After
I don't know if we could say that all of these movies are cult films, but they're certainly trending in that direction.
Yeah.
And they're all movies that I like. I would say out of the three, Mystery Men's my favorite. But if you want to watch, they're not really spoofs. They're just kind of parodies on exaggerating what's happening in society. Basketball
Reducto ad absurdum. That's the term I was thinking of trying to Reducto ad absurdum.
Yeah. All right, that's my playlist.
That's great. I like it. That's just fun. I kind of like the playlist. Movie.
I have to queue up some more of those at some point.
That's right. All right. So we'll conclude today with our watch list. Movies we've watched over the last week. Rob, what'd you watch?
I watched what I watched last. Well, I watched Heretic in the theater. There's a lot about this movie that I liked. I did not like the last 5 minutes of the movie because I felt like it was lazy, and I felt like they wanted to wrap things up in a way to get to their point, but it didn't really make sense to me in light of the rest of the story that was told. It's a really deep exploration of why do we believe what we believe, and Hugh Grant's character, the writing is pretty good, I think, when he's kind of breaking down religion in general and the differences between Christianity and Judaism and Islam, most of all. But the two girls who visit his house are Mormons. So he has actually asked for more information about the Mormon church, and that's why he's invited them to his house. But the whole thing they end up in this like convoluted game with him where they're just trying to find their way out, and he's not really allowing them to find a way out, even though he keeps on saying there is a way out. You just have to find the right way out. There's a very funny comparison to religion between religion and Monopoly, versions of Monopoly. In the versions of Monopoly, he compares the Book of Mormon and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to the quirky local Monopoly, and it's Bob Ross Monopoly. Judaism being the landlord's game, the original that Monopoly was based on, Christianity being Monopoly by Parker Brothers, and Islam being Monopoly with the credit card. That came out a few years ago. He also compares like songs that came out and then other bands who were sued for copying similar chord structure or melodies. Creep by Radiohead being one. And then they played the songs in the movie, which I thought was pretty cool too. I felt like it was a movie that had a good idea of what it was trying to convey, but it didn't get there because it was not a satisfying conclusion.
Mm.
The movie.
Hmm.
Um, I also watched Despicable Me 4 with my kids last night, and that's okay. It's a
Fair
Despicable Me
enough.
movie. They liked it. They laughed. I like seeing them laugh. So, um, not a movie that I saw, but a movie that I've already bought tickets for. I'm going to see Wicked on November 23rd in
Mm.
4D, which will be my first 4D movie experience. So I'm
Oh,
really looking
yes.
forward to that at King of Prussia.
Okay. Um, for me, I have very similar themes to the movie I saw in theaters this week. Conclave. I got around to seeing Conclave. Now, I have to tell you the story because I did something in the viewing of this movie that I have never done before in my movie going history. So there's the preface to this. So I was taking a little bit of a break, and I was going to go to an early afternoon. Well, it's not even afternoon. I was going to go to the 11:40 a.m. showing of Conclave, which is usually those type of showings, usually full of old people, but that's fine. Um, so it was going to be at Penn Cinema. I drove over there. I was going to be about, I had to stop and get some cold medicine, whatever. I was going to be like 8-10 minutes late to the movie. So I show up like 8-10 minutes late to the theater, and it was lunchtime, so I got a thing of, pop or a thing of pretzel nuggets. And I go in the theater, and I know I'm like 10-12 minutes late. And so the guy tells me first theater down here. I'm rushing, so I go, yeah, okay. First theater. I look at the movie poster on the side of the screen. It's Conclave. I go in. I walk in. The lights are already dark, and like the movie's playing. I'm like, oh man, like I know Penn's pretty quick on the draw, but either there wasn't a lot of trailers to this film, or like they ran the trailers ahead of the film. So I'm watching the film. I'm going through, and you get that feeling when you show up late to a movie where you're like, I know I'm missing a few minutes, but man, it seems like I'm missing a lot. And so eventually I kind of catch up to the place where I kind of know what's going on to the film. And oftentimes in a movie, kind of what the runtime is. And so I look at my watch a little bit. I'm like, okay, I got about another half hour, but it seems like the story's wrapping up here. And then the movie ends like a half hour before it's supposed to end. And I am like confused. I am so confused. And I'm like, what? Did I get the time wrong on this film? Did I no, I accidentally went to the 11 o'clock showing instead of the 11:40. The one was the first theater on the right. The other one was the first theater on the left. I went to the wrong theater. I went to the wrong, I literally went to the wrong one. I was supposed to be in theater 5. I was in theater 10 and missed the first half hour of the movie.
Nice. Probably
So
not.
I don't even know. I don't even know if I'm supposed to accurately do this. And I saw the ending of the movie, so I'm not really that inclined to feel like I need to go back and watch the beginning of the movie. Um, so in terms of the movie itself, I was definitely came away dissatisfied, primarily because of the conclusion of the movie. Um, it's it's building up all this drama about these popes are kind of infighting, or these cardinals are all infighting with each other and kind of trying to be above it all, but also trying to tear each other down. And you get the sense like, okay, this is really definitely like a secular person trying to write about the church. um, and there was a little bit of political values coming into it, but I mean the back and forth was kind of intriguing. It was kind of a mystery story as to where this is going to conclude, and then where it lands is just like a thud. I'm like, ugh, really? Like that's where you're going with this? That's where you're ending it? And just kind of undid the whole movie for me. And I'm like, really? That's where you're going? And it just seemed like one of those classic moments of like, all right, we're really gonna do this. Okay. Really? So I walked away. I'm like, really, that was disappointing. So it took what could have been an intriguing movie and just blew it at the end for me.
Maybe the real ending was in the first half an hour and you just missed it.
It might have been. Oh, I was so like, oh man, did I really just do that? And it can only happen because of a couple of circumstances. Like if I wasn't late to the movie, it would have instantly triggered like, oh, I'm in the wrong theater. But knowing I was already like 10 minutes late, yeah. Uh, so hopefully
Podcast people too, everyone.
that given the fact that it was the 5th of November this past week, I did
Yeah,
also watch V for Vendetta.
as one does.
Yes. So I felt obliged to say that. You got anything else, Rob?
I do not.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have in the Film for Fans podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you visit filmforfans.com, like, subscribe, tell your friends about the podcast. Please tell your friends.
Please.
Do it for the podcast.
Yes.
Just do it. Yeah. All right. Until next time, enjoy the movies.